What is up, Earthnoids, Spacenoids, and everything in between? I am just a simple new type, and we are back to talk about the 1 Year War. Sorry there's no video last week, because I was at Comic-Con. If you want to know more about that, go give our parent channel, Free Speech Geek, a subscribe. In our last video, we saw the death of Garma Zabi. In this video, we will see how his death affects the rest of the Zabi family. So let's get into this. Dolzel returns to Zoom City, the headquarters of the Federation of Zeon. Here, he meets with the rest of the Zabi family. Dolzel and Degwin suggest that they grieve quietly. However, Garen Zabi wants to use Garma's death as a public display to get Zeon's morale up. Meanwhile, Iselina, Garma's fiancée, goes to visit Garma's quarters. She uses her beauty to get some Zeon soldiers to take revenge on White Base. White Base is having some minor engine troubles. They may have to land even though they are so close to Federation airspace. 3 Gaus approach White Base. It is the Iselina crew. The Gundam and gun cannon launch. They jump onto the Gau and take one out with the quickness. Suddenly, Shar comes to assist Iselina.
Commander Shar, it's me, Lieutenant Dorota, formerly under Captain Garma's command.
I don't care.
Or at least he is at the battle to make himself appear like his loyalties are still with Zeon. Either way, Shar is able to get a shot on White Base. It is too much for the ship. White Base makes an emergency landing. Morai is able to land with everyone safely. The Gundam and gun cannon jump off the Gau and head towards Earth. On White Base, they try to get the ship up and running again. Meanwhile, some of the refugees start to leave the ship. Bright tries to convince 3 refugees to stay, but they make their way off the ship. Bad plan for the refugees, as Shar was waiting to take the people off of White Base. The refugees die. Bright and Kai chase after Shar, but he makes his escape. The Gundam and gun cannon land on Earth, but the Gaus continue their pursuit. The Gau takes the Gundam head on. Amazingly, the Gundam's shield can handle most of the attack, but his shield starts to melt. Luckily, Hayato in the gun tank distracts the Gau. Amado uses this moment to take out one of the Gaus with his energy lance. One more Gau remains, Iselina's. Iselina literally crashes the Gau into the Gundam. Amado can't get the Gundam to pilot, so he investigates. Iselina gets out of the Gau and points a gun at Amado. She blames Garma's death on him, but Amado has no idea what she is talking about. Iselina sustained a lot of injuries from the Gau crash landing. Right before shooting Amado, she faints and falls off the Gau. If she wasn't dead from the crash, this fall certainly did kill her. Amado is so confused by the situation, but gives Iselina a proper burial anyways. Meanwhile, back at Zoom City, there is a funeral for Garma Zabi. Degwin listens to old audio recordings of Garma before giving his eulogy. Back on Earth, we are met with Ramba Ral. Captain Ramba Ral is now a part of a special pursuit force ordered to follow White Base after the death of Garma. Ramba Ral takes command in a Zanzibar-class ship. The Zanzibar is the closest ship that Zeon has to the Federation's Pegasus-class ship. It is a heavy assault carrier capable of carrying many short-ranged mobile suits and fighters. However, Ramba Ral notes that they don't currently have too much to work with on board. Ral searches for White Base. Meanwhile, White Base is going through a thunderstorm. They have to land so they don't waste Monosky particles. Ryu and Amado are commanded to sortie, but Amado is spacing out. The war is starting to get to him. The Zanzibar locates White Base. Ramba Ral sorties in the goof, with 2 other Zakus supporting him. We talked about the MS-07B goof and our weapons of MSG video. But to sum up, The Goof is a short-range mobile suit designed for Earth combat. Its specialty is the Heat Rod, which is a high-voltage electric shock whip. Amado and Ryu sortie, but Amado is still unfocused and not in the game currently. Amado and Ral fight on the battlefield. Amado is taken aback as he never experienced fighting a Gouf. Ramba Ral says his most famous line in the Gundam franchise.
"'Tis no Zaku, boy! No Zaku!"
Ryu and the gun tank comes in with an assault. The Goof and Zanzibar make their escape. Amado notes that it seemed like Zeon was playing with him. Back at Zoom City, Giranzabi's propaganda eulogy is broadcasted everywhere. His speech is used for fear to incite its people. Through rage, anger, and loss, a leader can boost the morale of their people quite easily. A small crew of Zeon Earth forces note that the enemy mobile suit is nearby. They make a plan to attack the Gundam, but they note that they only have one Zaku. Their plan is really silly. We will get back to it in a moment. On White Base, Lieutenant Matilda resupplies White Base again and informs Bright of his promotion to ensign. Meanwhile, Amado is crushing hard on Matilda while ignoring a jealous Fraubo. Lieutenant Matilda supplies the ship and leaves, but is suddenly attacked. The Gundam launches. Amado spots a Zaku and chases it. Now here is this Zeon squad's bright idea. They lure the Gundam away and then attack it with hovercrafts known as the WAPA, which is Wheelless Aero Palletized Personal Actuator. They have machine guns and that's about it. They're relatively weak, but in big numbers, they are quite distracting. The WAPAs fly around the Gundam and plant bombs all over the Gundam's body. The Gundam is able to swat away the WAPAs like flies, but they leave after planting the bombs. Amado notices that there are bombs all over the Gundam. He only has 30 minutes to defuse the bombs. He defuses them one at a time. With the help of Ryu and Kai, they drive 1 kilometer away from Gundam and White Base and unload the bombs. As they flee, the bombs go off. As everyone regroups at White Base, a truck full of locals come up and talk to Amuro. Amuro notes how carefree people on Earth are, but Sayla and Bright are like, yeah, those are the Zeon soldiers that just tried to kill us. White Base continues across Central Asia. They are looking for a rendezvous point to meet up with some of General Revel's squad. They spot a jeep and land. However, the man is badly injured. They bring him aboard White Base and give him medical attention. The man informs Bright that White Base is to make its way to Odessa to take part in an assault on Odessa Day. Bright is concerned as White Base isn't a normal Federation ship and the majority of its crew are quite green. Meanwhile, the ship is currently out of salt. They diverge their path towards a lake to see if they could find salt. However, when they get there, the lake is all dried up as it shifts from period to period. The ship is spotted by Ramba Ral. He sorties in the Goof. Amado goes out to sortie in the Gundam. However, Sayla is the one that sorties. Amado goes out in the gun cannon instead. Sayla struggles to pilot the Gundam. Ral notes that an amateur is piloting it. A Zaku pins down the Gundam to take back the Zeon base. Amado, in the gun cannon, takes out one of the Zakus. The Goof retreats, but the remaining Zaku is disabled by the gun cannon. Only Ramba Ral escapes. The gun cannon drags the Zaku back to White Base. They take the Zaku as a prisoner. Meanwhile, Sayla is condemned to 3 days of solitary confinement. Before she is confined, she asks the prisoner what has happened to Char. The prisoner informs Sayla that he was disciplined for not keeping Garma safe. Bright interrogates the prisoner. While the crew is doing tests and simulations, the prisoner makes his escape. He tries to help release Sayla, who is still in solitary, but she screams for help instead. While the prisoner makes his escape, Ramba Ral prepares to attack White Base. Hayato and Amado launch in the gun tank against Bright's orders. They take out some DOPs, but once the goof is launched, gun tank is of no use. Amado and Hayato must return to White Base. Meanwhile, Sayla escapes and chases down the Zeon prisoner. He makes it to the airlock. A Fetty soldier whips out a bazooka and blows up the door. But in doing so, he also kills the prisoner in the process. Tough luck. Amado launches in the Gundam. Meanwhile, Kai, in the gun cannon, is getting overwhelmed by the Gelf. Amado is able to ward off the goof as it retreats. On White Base, Bright reprimands Amado for disobeying orders. Later that night, Amado overhears Murai and Bright talking about taking Amado off of the Gundam. Amado, fed up with everything happening, decides to leave White Base. Amado takes the Gundam and bails. Amado hides the Gundam in an abandoned city. While hiding, Kycilia and Makuve scout the city in an onion mobile armor known as the MAX-03 Adsum. Back at White Base, Fraubo goes to find Amado. She finds Amado at the abandoned town the next day, but he decides to leave after mentioning that Ryu thinks deserters should be punished. Maybe don't say that. Frau Bo won't leave Amado alone. While traveling, the Gundam intercepts a message from Kycilia and Makuve about an enemy mine. Frau heads back to White Base to inform them of the mine. Meanwhile, Kycilia and Makuve launch in the Adsum. The MAX-03 Adsum is a mobile armor with a Minovsky craft system. This allows a hovering drone to shoot out a metal net. It then douses its enemy with a sand-like material which conducts heat quickly. We see this play out as the Gundam is covered in sand and endures extreme heat. The Gundam can't move as all power is being diverted to keep Amado alive. The Adsum escapes. Kycilia demands that the mine be blown up as a matter of national security. Don't mind the soldiers working there. The attack on the Gundam wears off. He investigates the destroyed mines. All the data is destroyed. However, Amado finds a paper that says 102 mining facility. He realizes that he only destroyed one of the many mining bases. This wasn't as important as Amado thought. His arrogance is getting the best of him. He helps a lone Zeon soldier get water and takes off as White Base is heading towards the mine. Meanwhile, the White Base crew notes that this attack will probably cause more damage than help. Amado's arrogance and emotions are starting to affect the crew. Frau goes off to chase Amado again. Amado hides the Gundam and wanders through the Central Asian desert, most likely around India. He stumbles into a bar in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, 14 Zeon soldiers barge into the bar, including Ramba Ral and Hamon. We haven't talked too much about Hamon. Crowley Hamon is the wife of Ramba Ral. She was also responsible for helping Sayla and Char get out of Zoom City when they were children. Hamon notices Amado and attempts to buy him a meal. Amado refuses. Suddenly, Frau barges in as she is caught by Zeon forces. Amado says her name out loud, giving away that he knows her. Rao walks up to Amado and notices that he is freaking out and clenching his gun hard. Ramba Rao closes Amado's jacket and ignores that he was about to get shot. He says, if we should meet in the battle, things will be different. Frau and Amado leave. Rao orders a Zeon soldier to follow them. Amado bails again, and Frau goes to White Base to inform the crew of the situation. Meanwhile, the enemy scout informs Ramba Ral of the location of White Base. He mobilizes in his Galf with his team of Zakus. Kai launches in the gun cannon, and Ryu and Hayato launch in the gun tank. Ral and the Zakus focus on the gun tank and destroy one of its treads. The gun tank is immobilized. Zeon ignores the gun tank and focuses on White Base. Hayato ejects the top half of the gun tank. This allows for Ryu to eject the core fighter. Meanwhile, Kai and the gun cannon is hiding from Zeon. One Zaku sneaks around to find the back of White Base right as they put all power into their thrusters. That poor fool. The goof jumps on top of White Base and tries to destroy the thrusters. Mirai decides to flip the ship. The goof falls off White Base as it spins around. Gundam comes out of nowhere to help the White Base crew. The goof and Gundam engage in battle. Both Amado and Ramba get part of their cockpits blown off quite conveniently to allow each other to see their faces. They recognized each other from the bar earlier. The Gundam takes out the goof. Ral ejects and literally swings away. Ral regroups with his squad. Back at White Base, Amado is detained for deserting the crew. Amado thinks that he is the only one that can pilot the Gundam, but the crew thinks otherwise. Bright ponders about what to do with Amado. Meanwhile, Ramba Ral is informed that he will receive 3 new DOMs. However, Mikuve doesn't like that Ramba Ral is all up in his mining business, so Mikuve informs that Ramba Ral's DOMs were destroyed during resupply. This doesn't seem to deter Ral from his attack, however. Meanwhile, Kai, Hayato, and others leave White Base. Their morale is low and they want to find another Federation ship. Ryu goes and chases them. Ryu finds and punches everyone, but they spot Ramba Ral's gallop. Ryu heads back to White Base. He lets Kai and the others make up their own mind on whether or not they want to come back and fight. Ramba Ral attacks White Base. Sayla launches in the Gundam. Ral lets Amado out of the brig to man a turret on White Base. He also assists Sayla with battle tactics. Ral uses tanks along with jetpacks to get onto White Base. The team prepare for hand-to-hand combat. Sayla returns to White Base. Amado and Sayla switch places. Bright tells Amado to attack parts of White Base if he must, but don't let Ral take over the ship. Suddenly, Ramba Ral runs into Sayla. The Ral family had very close ties with the Daikun family back in the day. He instantly notices that Sayla is Artesia. However, in this moment, Ral hesitated. He chose not to attack and calls the mission a failure. The Gundam suddenly takes out a part of the ship where Ral is, and he is surrounded. He does the only thing he knows how. Hamon attacks the Gundam. The Gundam uses its beam saber to destroy the Gallop, but Hamon ejects and escapes. White Base moves onward, but Hamon plans her revenge. Ryu is recovering from a bullet wound that he took from Ral's attack. Amado is also back in the brig. Ryu goes to talk to Bright and suggests that they have a talk with one another to get on the same page. Ryu is too weak. He heads back to the medbay. However, he decides to talk to Amado instead. They have to drag Ryu back to bed. Hamon makes her attack on White Base. Ryu demands that Amado be let out of the brig to pilot the Gundam. Bright agrees and lets him out. The mechanics are injured and the Gundam isn't ready. Amado decides to go out in the core fighter. Kai and the gun cannon tries to hold them off. Jobjan pilots the gun tank, but it is out of commission. I think this is the first time we see Jobjan in the show, although he does make an appearance in Kukuru's Dawn Island, the movie. Ryu gets out of bed and tries to help get the gun tank up and running. Rather than using the gun tank, he launches the core fighter attached to the broken gun tank. The mechanic on White Base launches the Gundam parts. The core fighter attaches to the Gundam mid-air. Amado has definitely mastered this technique. Hamon's Magella and the Gallop head towards White Base. Amado notices that there are bombs all over the Gallop. This is a suicide mission for Hamon's team. The Gundam tries to hold back the Gallop as much as possible. The Gundam takes out a Zaku while holding the tank back. Hamon's Magella attacks the Gundam from behind. The Gundam can't do anything, as it is still holding back the Gallop. Hamon prepares for the final blow on the Gundam. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a core fighter flies and crashes into Hamon. Ryu was in that core fighter. Both him and Hamon are killed. The Gundam destroys the Gallop's engine and pushes it away from White Base and ignites it. White Base is saved, but Amado wonders who was in the kamikaze core fighter. Sayla tells Amado that Ryu was piloting the core fighter and is dead. The crew grieve for their lost friend and crewmate. Bright takes it hard as the commander. He blames himself the most. All Amado and the crew could do is keep moving forward. That'll do it for this episode. White Base has lost one of its crew members. They will use this opportunity to really come together as a crew. Also, you will notice that I skipped Kukuru's Doan's Island. I want to do a separate video that will focus on that one episode and the movie. Here's hoping Sunrise will let me post newer Gundam stuff without getting a takedown. This video is composed of a lot of side missions and what some would call filler while on Earth. However, in our next episode, we are heading to Jaburo, the home base of the Earth Federation forces. We might even see a return of Char. But that will do it for now. Remember, new types, find someone in your life who is as loyal as Hamon was to Ramba Ral. Peace.